Hi, everybody, and welcome to Grit, Girl Rock Stars in Trades. With me today is the amazing Mikki Paradis, and she is from Raleigh, North Carolina, and she owns her own drywall business. So I'm going to read a little bit about Mikki, and then we're going to get right started with our interview with her. Thank you again so much for being here, Mikki. We appreciate you taking some time today.
Thanks for having me.
So in North Carolina's Research Triangle, you will find Mikki Paradis, founder, CEO, and president of PDI Drywall, Inc. Mikki is a real-life Captain Marvel. While Mikki may not fly or have superpowers, she created PDI before graduating from NC State University in 2005. She also developed her own proprietary computer software, and at 35 broke the elusive $1 million sales barrier. That is awesome. The cherry on top is that she did this in the construction industry, which has long history of machismo and male domination. So I love this, Mikki. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and get started with these interview questions here.
Sure.
And so I kind of said a little bit about who you are and what you do, but tell us a little bit more. How did you get started in the drywall industry of all things?
That's always the question. People are like, how, why? And I'm like, listen, nobody knows. I was in my 20s. But so it was funny because I went to NC State for the intention of going to law school, and but I paid my way through school. And so my senior year, I realized that I would be the world's worst lawyer. And I was like, listen, I got to graduate with this useless degree because I'm not changing my major, because I'd paid my way through college and I was really over it. I was like, no, I'm done. And I had done a internship for 2 summers with the drywall company. And it was kind of an interesting experience. At the time, I was very annoyed by the way that I was treated because I was a woman. I was pretty much just treated like a secretary. I think that they thought that I was a man. So I get a lot of people being surprised by Mikki being a female. I guess most dudes know a Mikki named man, or know a Mikki that is a man. But so it happens to me a lot where I show up to a meeting and somebody's like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Mikki. And they're like, no, Mikki's a man. And I'm like, no, not in this case. So I really think they thought it was like short for Michael. And I showed up and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm your intern. And they couldn't get rid of me. So they kind of paired me with their office staff. That was completely and totally, everything was pen and paper. They had a computer that they didn't use. They didn't have email. They did everything like by hand and fax machines. And so I kind of came in there and I introduced them to technology, and the owner of the company absolutely loved emails. Like, he just thought it was just revolutionary that he could type an email and it would instantly be sent to the person who was going to receive it. And so he didn't know how to use a computer. So he brought me with him everywhere so that I could type emails for him. Which, like, when you hear that, you're like, that's horrible. But what I realized later in life is that experience is one he never would have given to a man, because he would have assumed that a man would have been his competition one day. So he brought me to supplier negotiating meetings, labor negotiating meetings, client negotiating meetings. Like, I learned how to negotiate contracts and just unbelievable amounts of information that he never would have shared with a man, because he would have naturally assumed that a man would be his competition and he wouldn't want to train his competition. Right. So I spent these 2 summers just kind of learning everything about a drywall company. And when I realized I didn't want to go to law school, I was like, you know what? I could start a drywall company.
So you did become his competition anyway.
I did. It was shocking to him. It's funny because we were both bidding on the same project and I won. And he wasn't even mad. He was just shocked. Like, he never expected me to be his competition or to win out projects if him and I were competing. And it was just shocking to him. And so it's kind of validating, because I was like,
Yeah.
Guess you should have been looking over your shoulder, old man.
I love it. I love it. So I love that story. And I love that you just kind of took it by the reins and said, you know what, I can totally do this. I can do this myself. And so that's super awesome. So with that, what has been one of your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome as a woman in your field of work?
Well, I think it's twofold, right? Like, I think one of the things that kind of annoys me the most is this double standard that it's automatically just assumed that because I'm a woman, I really don't know what I'm doing, or this is my father's company or my husband's company. Like when I walk into a job trailer, everybody assumes, like the specific job that I'm on, everybody assumes that I work for the general contractor as like the office person. And I'm like, no, I'm the drywaller. And it just shocks people. Like they're just shocked.
Yeah.
And so I think kind of overcoming that stigma of if a woman is in construction, she's someone's wife or someone's daughter or someone's office staff. And so, and it just irks me because, 16 years I've been doing this, and very rarely do I come across a superintendent or other tradespeople that are just like, oh yeah, obviously she's a drywaller. I mean, I think it's happened twice in 16 years. And I think I get a little discouraged because I'm not seeing the kind of change in mindset that I would have hoped to have found in after 16 years. I mean, when I first went into business, I was 23 years old. I kind of expected people to not take me seriously. And I guess there's a part of me that's like, really? It's 2021,
right? I mean,
with the time.
Yeah. Well, and it is frustrating because I totally get what you're saying on that, because doing concrete finishing and I show up on a job site and I'm standing behind a grinder, running a grinder, and people are like, oh, so how long have you worked for the company?
Yes. Oh, I get that all the time.
Like, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I own the company. Like,
and then they're like, boss. Oh, for how long? And I'm like, 16 years. And they're like, what? Like,
yeah. Same here. I'm 9 years in on my company.
Yeah,
so
and a lot of people will think that, oh, I inherited it from my father. And I'm just like, and it just really bums me out that that's really where people's minds first go. Like, because
is that we were handed this.
Right. Like,
like we didn't work for it. We were just given it.
We're given it. Or we didn't choose it. It just happened to us. And when I entered the industry, honestly, most women that were working in construction were either, it was that situation. Their husbands had passed away and they were like, they took over and they're going to figure it out. Or they worked in the office. Mm-hmm. So when there wasn't a lot of women being like, yeah, I'm a drywaller, or yeah, I'm a welder, or yeah, I do concrete. But 16 years have passed, people.
I know.
Women are choosing to go into the trades. Like, this is a real thing. Like, get on with it. So I think that kind of mindset of, walking onto a job and immediately having to prove myself. Whereas if I were a male with 16 years experience, it wouldn't even be a question. Like, you would assume that I am amazing at my job, but I step onto a job and I immediately have to prove myself. And that, it's a bummer. And it gets tiresome. You're just like, listen, I haven't slept in 16 years and I'm tired.
Right. Exactly. So let's flip that over. So what has been your biggest learning experience?
Oh man, so many.
Tradeswoman in the industry.
So I definitely think that I have had periods of time in business where I can dwell on the negatives. And I think what I've learned is you just don't get as far focusing on the things that are maybe not fair or not right.
Yeah.
I kind of go through these periods where I'm like out here on these streets educating men about why they shouldn't be so sexist. And then some periods I'm just like, it's unfortunate that that's the way you think, and there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm just gonna move on. And I find that when I choose to look at my differences as a differentiator, things go a little bit smoother. And so that's what I realized is, I really do, even with things the way they are in construction and the sexism and people not, me having to prove myself to everybody, I still encourage women to go into the trades, because no matter what, you are guaranteed to be different from your competitors.
Yep.
I think there is maybe one female drywall company at my level in all of North Carolina. And she's not even a drywaller. She's a painter that offers drywall. I'm a drywaller and a painter. I've done both my entire career. So, but just, okay. So of all the drywall competition, there's only one other person that is a female like me at the level that I'm at. I mean, what a way to stand out. And so kind of looking at your differences as a way to open up doors instead of looking at it as something that's closing doors in front of you. I think for me, it was a lesson that I had to learn, and it was very helpful in learning that. And I always tell women that the biggest thing that I wish I had done sooner when I went into business is establishing a relationship with my bank. I think women, statistically, like research shows that women are really bad about going out and getting funding. Like they kind of have this, like, I got to go it alone, I got to do it myself attitude. And man, I wish I had a different experience when I first went into business, and gone out and had a relationship with a bank and gotten funding so that I could grow my business faster. Because it took me, I do $1 million projects and I have to have access to funding because we go between 60 and 90 days between payment, and I have to pay my guys every week and pay my supplies and all that. So I need access to funding on certain jobs. And I couldn't get those jobs until I had that funding. And so it was one of those things where I realized, like, when I went out and established a relationship with a bank and got access to a credit line, my entire business changed. And so I always encourage women, find out about a small business loan. The SBA has unbelievable opportunities for women that you don't even know about because their website is terrible. And so if you don't have somebody who can kind of walk you through the options, you're never going to figure it out on your own. So I always tell women, get funding, go to a bank that is pro small business and even pro women owned small business, and have a relationship with your banker. Even if you don't qualify for lending, still do a monthly check-in with your banker. And so you can kind of get that relationship with them where they're like, listen, they may not qualify, but we're going to lend to them anyway because we know them and we trust them. Yeah. So I wish I had done that sooner.
It's totally true though. I mean, like even in the financial industry, like there is now like historically more women financial advisors than there ever have been in the past, because women are starting to get that, hey, I need to know about money. I need to know how it works. I need to be smart about my money and those kinds of things. So I think that's great. So are there any other resources that have helped you advance your career as a trades professional?
Absolutely. So when I first went into business, and this I think happens to a lot of small businesses, not just women owned, but like I'm a great drywaller and I learned how to drywall in the field and I learned that aspect of it, but I didn't go to school for business. I don't have my MBA, and most small businesses in the trades don't. So finding some courses that can help you, especially if they're construction related. And I was really, really blessed. The NCDOT, which is North Carolina Department of Transportation, had they had a pretty substantial amount of funding to put on these courses for small business owners. And they had courses all over the board, from estimating to, like job costing and cost tracking. And really, I took this one course on estimating that I still use those principles and really the formulas that I learned to this day. So really kind of don't don't assume that you know everything, because you don't. And there is just so much out there that is free. Like, these classes were free. I think if I paid anything, it was like $50. Look out there for courses, even if they're at a community college, having that bit of education. Because, I learned a lot of times you learn things wrong and you don't know it. And so the guy, the company that I kind of learned my estimating from, he wasn't factoring in his company overhead and his project overhead. He kind of had this mindset of like, oh, well, my profit is what's left after I pay my materials and pay my guys. And so that's what I thought. And then I took this class and I realized insurance, taxes, all these other things. Right. So that kind of changed my business. And so really kind of getting clear on the things that you don't know, going out and learning them, but then also being willing to not try to do everything yourself. So I am great at drywall. I'm pretty good at business, but I'm terrible at taxes. So I have a CPA that knows my level of comprehension of taxes is 0, and just is like, okay, here's what you have to do. And they do it for me and I pay them for that. And so I find, like, most women that I've met, small business owners, are really hesitant to hire somebody to do their books, to hire somebody to do their, to be their CPA, and to kind of do those other things that they're not great at. But I guarantee you, no matter what it is that you need, there's somebody who will do it like piecemeal. Like, I have a bookkeeper. She doesn't come to my office every day. She does books for everybody. And I pay her a couple $100s a month, and she does all the crap that I don't want to do and I'm not good at it. And it's the best money I ever spent. But it took me a long time to get to that point where I realized, okay, instead of me spending time doing something I hate, I can make so much more money investing that time in estimating and relationship building and all the things that I do to make money. So it's,
you and I really are very similar, because I like hate the bookkeeping aspect of my business too. Like, it's like the bane of my existence, right? But I'm the same way. Like, I have an accountant that does my taxes for me. They do my quarterly reports for my payroll taxes. And I'm like, cool. I have them doing it, so I don't get in trouble because I'm a dummy with that stuff.
Right. I'm like, listen, can I build a house? Yes. Can I do my taxes? No.
Right. Okay. So next question. What advice would you give to another woman entering the trades, or perhaps your younger self?
Oh, younger self. So I think I would advise, and this is because sometimes I'll go and I'll talk to, because there's a group in North Carolina called Hope Renovations, and they train women to go into the trades. Kind of, it's basic training, and hopefully they get paired with a internship or a, what do they call, apprenticeship. But so when I go and talk to them, I talk to them about kind of knowing where your boundaries are and being very clear on your boundaries. And understanding that your boundaries are your boundaries and they're not everybody's boundaries. Because I had to learn the hard way, for me, like, what was more important, my integrity or money. And so that is, I had a client that for 10 years, we did all of their drywall and paint. And about 5 years in, things started to get really weird. The project manager was aggressive, had this expectation that he should be getting something extra from me because he was giving me all of his work. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I didn't have a really clear line drawn in the sand where I was like, okay, if he crosses this line, then I got to walk away from this business, because it was more than half of my business. So it was really hard to be like, is this okay? And so for 5 years, I let this guy treat me like absolute garbage. He spoke badly about me to other trades. He just really did a lot of damage to my reputation. And I kind of kept tolerating it because it was like, man, this is like $1 million worth of work a year. I'd have to go out and replace that work, and I don't want to do that. So I tolerated it for a long time, and I shouldn't have. And so I think maybe some women would be like, I don't care, talk bad about me. $1 million, hell yeah, I don't care what you say about me, I'm gonna do that work. But for me, it was a violation of my integrity and my boundaries, and it took a really big explosion of an event in order for me to walk away. And I wish I had done that differently. And I think I tell women, like, hey, be really clear on what is okay and what isn't okay, because when you're not clear, the people around you aren't. Right. And so when they're not clear what is and isn't okay, they're going to just do whatever until you've kind of been violated your integrity or your values or your person, you know? And so I think, man, I wish I had known when I was first interacting with this guy and he was making comments about how my name sounds like I'm a stripper. I wish I had known to draw that line right then. Yeah. And been like, excuse me, would you talk to your child like that? Well, then you don't talk to me like that, you know? And so I kind of wish that I had known better. And so I always kind of give that advice to women, like, spend some time thinking about what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. And I always give the example, I frequently will work with a superintendent who doesn't have anybody else to talk to about his personal life and will way overshare with me about, oh, call me about his girlfriend or whatever. And so what I've realized is that doesn't bother me. If that endears you to me and you will use me on the next project because you have somebody to talk to, I add a little bit on top for my time, for the hours of time that you're going to talk to me about shit that does not matter. Pardon my French. And I'll continue to do your work. I don't care about that. But if you're going to assume that you're going to get something other than drywall, that's a deal breaker. And so kind of being clear on where your line is, like, oh, it doesn't bother me when people talk to me about their girlfriends, but when you talk to me about sexual positions, yeah, that's a no. Yeah.
There is some of those guys that just they're like no filter.
No. Yeah. And honestly, if you are able to establish from the beginning, like, okay, that's not cool, and you say that, they will show themselves to either be like, oh, I'm sorry, or get out of my trailer. And it's good to know from the beginning, because then you don't spend a decade investing into a company because you think you have a relationship with them and then find out that they just wanted to sleep with you the whole time. Like, that would have been good to know from the beginning.
Yeah. So on that note, so what other improvements or advancements do you see that still need to be made in our industry for women who are working on the sites?
Oh, well, I will tell you one thing, and I don't know if this is ever going to get solved, but somebody needs to figure out a better porta potty. Because
sanitation, that's like the number one answer that I get from everybody. It's awful. Like, it is awful. You would not keep your own personal bathroom looking that way.
No. Like, honestly, I wish that things could get to a point where there's enough women on a job where we could justify having a ladies only porta potty. I don't know how that would work, but I think that for me is one of the most frustrating pieces of, like, the job that I'm on currently. They have a job trailer that has a bathroom, and, you know, in the contract it says, hey, this isn't for, you know, your employees to go to the bathroom in, but I get an exception made for me because I'm not catching a disease from a porta potty, and they know it. But not every job has a job trailer with a bathroom. And so I think that to me is like, hey guys, if you want more women going into construction, maybe figure out sanitation. That'd be great. Yeah. But I also think kind of companies being more intentional about creating environments that are female friendly. And I know that a lot of people think like, oh, you're not, you know, we don't want people to go make things special for us. But the thing is that it's not that we're asking people to make things special for women. We're asking them to make them inclusive.
Yeah.
And so it shouldn't, you know, women in construction shouldn't have to tolerate certain behavior because, oh, this is construction, you know, and
right. Like it's been the norm. It's just the way it is kind of thing.
Yeah.
And see
deal
the
with
way
it, get thicker skin, or, you know, all the things you hear people say.
But the thing that I see is that when we make these improvements, like sanitation, for example, like when we improve it because the women are saying, hey, you need to improve it, we're actually improving it for everybody, like guys included. Like I feel like guys have just as much a right to a clean porta potty as the rest of us, right?
Yeah,
and just because they're guys in construction, they don't deserve a nasty porta potty like that, you know? So I just think that with women coming more into the industry, there's more of us coming in and more of us speaking up and saying, hey, this is an issue. And it's been an issue before we were here, you know, kind of thing. So I think it's great that, you know, women are bringing some of these issues that have always been there to the forefront. They're shining light on it, you know,
for sure.
So let's switch it up a little bit. So what is your favorite thing to do outside of work?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like, what do I do outside of work?
We sleep.
Yeah, for real. I'm like sleeping if I ever sleep, which doesn't happen often. That's great. So a couple years ago, for one of my birthdays, I wanted to go to the Turks and Caicos, and it was like super expensive because they had just opened to Airbnbs. Like previously it was just hotels, and they were like $800 or $900 a night a room, like no, so it was like a luxury destination. I mean, it still is because it's hella expensive. But so we got in a vacation rental that was like occupied. It was like the first time I'd stayed. My lighting is really weird. I'm sorry that I'm glowing on the screen, but I don't know what to do.
You're radiant.
Oh, that's better. Yeah. It was the first time we stayed with a like occupied in someone's home when they were in it, and it was amazing. They're Canadians that had moved to the Turks and Caicos like 20 years ago, and we became really good friends with them. And that 2 hurricanes hit that year, and they were building a rental property, and so they reached out to us and they were like, hey, there's 2 drywallers on the island, and they have a 2-year waiting list because of all of the work that's happening thanks to the hurricanes. And they're like, do you want to come do our drywall? And I was like, yes, I do. So we ended up kind of working out a trade. And so I'm able to go to the Turks and Caicos, obviously pre-Rona, a couple times a year. And that is my favorite place on earth. I can disconnect. There's no, like it's international, so I don't always get the best for service. So I'm just like, sorry, can't take your call.
Yeah. Get that digital detox, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'd like to say there are other things that I do, but it's really like, if I'm not taking a vacation, I'm working.
Yeah. I know the feeling. Totally. So what is your secret weapon, if you have one, for your own health and wellness?
Oh, okay. So this is something that I used to catch a lot of crap about when I was younger. Because most construction people, I don't know if it's like most men in general or like construction people in general, they don't take care of themselves. And so I have always been very clear that I take care of my physical body because I need this thing to work. So I've always I will take time off work in the middle of the day to go to the acupuncturist or go to the chiropractor or go get a medical massage. And I don't care. I don't care. I call it a meeting. Sorry, I have a meeting. I'll be back in 2 hours. It is what it is, because this is a really hard job and it's really hard on my body. And unfortunately, as much as I hate it, my body is not made the same way as men's is. So I'm not as strong. I have to work harder to lift things up. It's easier for me to injure myself. And so I am very stringent in self-care and taking care of myself. And I don't make any excuses. Like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Deal with it. In the beginning, I would catch a lot of crap for it, but I feel like now people are just used to that from me. So like, oh yeah, Mikki's going to get a massage. That's what she does.
Yeah. No, I hear you though. I mean, I love my chiropractor appointments. It's like,
yeah.
oh,
yeah.
So, yeah. So last question.
Sure.
Who or what inspires you?
That's a good one. Somebody asked me a question like that the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I think that the thing that inspires me the most is the generations of little girls coming behind me. And so that's kind of like, I think of me as a little girl, and I think of my nieces and how I want them to have something better when they, if my niece, she's 4 or she just turned 5, she's total boss. Like she'll be in the back of my Jeep. She's so tiny, she can't see out the window, but she's like giving me directions. You're going the wrong way. And I'm like, Kennedy, you don't even know where we're going. And she's like, I know you're going the wrong way. I'm just like, you're going to grow up and run the world one day. So I think about her, and I think about what I want for her. If she decided she wanted to be like her TT and be a drywall contractor, I want this to be a better place for her. And I want her to not, she's going to have her own set of problems to deal with. I would like for it, maybe them not to be the same problems I had in the industry. And so I'm definitely inspired to think of the little girls that hopefully won't grow up with these gender norms and, oh, these are my only options for professions. And they, those things are crushed. But then also when they get into the industry, a lot of these things, it's more inclusive, and it's not even a big deal that it's a woman drywaller. Like, that's really what inspires me and encourages me to kind of keep going. Right. But then also all the women, like I had a mentor, and she was a tycoon in the tech industry, which was like no women, none.
Right.
And so thinking, like, hearing her stories and all the things that kind of she went through so that I could have a different experience like that. It's always just like, all right, I got to reach my hand back because somebody reached their hand back for me.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I am super excited that we were able to get together. Thank you so much for taking a little time out in your Jeep on your job site today. I'm super excited that we connected and we got to meet kind of face to face. Yeah. And, maybe we could do this again sometime, but I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, get to know your story. And thank you so much for sharing it with everyone here on Grit, Girl Rock Stars in Trade. So why don't you give us real quick your contact information, maybe your website where people can go check out more information about you and your company.
Sure. So my company name is PDI Drywall. So it's PDIDrywallinc.com. And that has all my contact information. It's just Mikki, which is Mikki at PDIDrywallinc.com. And then, like, listen, I have a bunch of socials for PDI, but I don't check them. So if you just email me, that's the best way to get a hold of me, is just to send me an email. But because I'm like, listen, I can barely keep up with my regular Facebook. I ain't got time for business Facebook. Which I know that shows my age, but whatever.
well, I mean, you and I connected on Instagram, on your personal Instagram. So, I mean, we're just out there sharing our real world experiences, and we connected and here we are. So that's pretty cool.
It is. I love it. Yeah. And my Instagram is at MTPARADIS. So, and that always reach out to me there, because like my personal stuff, I'm on it, but like the business stuff, I'm like, listen, there's only 24 hours in a day.
That's it. That's it. All right, sister. Well, thank you so much for being on Girl Rock Stars in Trade. You are definitely a rock star.
Thank you.
I appreciate you inspiring the next generation with your little nieces. That's super awesome.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Grit, Girl Rock Stars in Trades. See you later.